Right? No. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm so excited. Today is the day, the kickoff to FaRoFeb. I'm so excited, you guys. I have some fabulous people on my channel, some amazing, spectacular people, and I will let them introduce themselves because they will do a better job at it than I am because I'm just so excited right now. I can't even talk. So take it away, Jessin.
So I'm Jessin from Jessin Reads Romance on YouTube, and I also co-host the Smart Women Read Romance podcast with my Aunt Juliette Cross, and I'm just so excited to talk about fantasy because it was like my first love.
I'm Alicia with Alicia Reads. I am not as into fantasy as some people, so I'm excited for this month so that I can delve into a genre that is usually not my number one go-to. So I'm excited.
I am Natasha from Book Diva 401 on Instagram. I have dipped my toe into fantasy, and Carrie's ready to push me in the pool, so I'm ready to just jump in. So I'm really excited to be here and participate.
I'm Crystal. My channel is Crystal's Bookish Life, and I have been a fantasy lover probably from the very beginning. I think in middle grade fantasy is when it really, all those great middle grade books. So, yeah.
I'm Bethany. My YouTube channel is Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Same on Instagram, and I also do the Chapter 3 podcast. And I also love fantasy and have for a long time. Since I was 7 and my parents bought me the Chronicles of Narnia, I've
Same.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then in the last couple years, I've really gotten into romance as well, and so kind of the mix of the two has been fun.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm so excited that I have all you ladies here because I just want to gush fantasy with you guys. But I figured we could start by just saying what we're reading tonight so we could tell everybody. And if you guys are in the comments below, tell us what you guys are reading as well.
So I'm reading a book that's been on my TBR for a really long time. Juliette's actually been trying to get me to read this book for years. So I'm finally reading Radiance by Grace Raven. And I'm really excited about it. And I love this cover. This cover gives me life. I love her red hair. And I was like, I'd still do him, even with his gray skin and his black claws. I'm like, yes. So I'm excited about it.
Okay.
I love that book so much.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it too.
Oh, me. So I have, because my fantasy tends to be a little bit more, I think, darker. When I read fantasy, it's a little bit more more dark than necessarily what I think. There's some world building and Jennifer L. Armentrout or Sarah J. Maas. So I'm reading currently Found, Brides of the Kindred Four. It's the Evangeline Anderson with the, apparently he has 2 penises. Now I'm staying on brand and reading this to kick it off. And then I have a touch of Stone and Snow and A Curse So Dark and Lonely. So I will hopefully be reading all of these this month. Natasha?
I also have the same 2 that Alicia has, Touch of Stone and Snow and A Curse So Dark and Lonely. But I think I'm going to start with Daughter of the Red Dawn. Somebody else had mentioned this, that they were reading it for the month. So I went and pulled the synopsis, which I don't normally do, but it intrigued me. It was supposed to be heavy on the romance, heavy on the fantasy. So I figured, why not? So it sounded good. So that's what I'll start with.
I am starting with Touch of Ruin, which is the second book in the Hades and Persephone series by Scarlett St. Clair. I also have A Touch of Stone and Snow on my TBR. I'm definitely going to be reading that this month too. But I wanted something that was kind of, I don't know, I just was in the mood for a little bit of an urban and quick into the romance.
So I'm reading These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, which is a kind of dark YA fantasy that's loosely reimagining Romeo and Juliet in 1920s Shanghai, but with monsters and stuff. And it's got a badass Juliet. So far, I'm really into it. So that's been fun.
Yeah, I actually got that one. I got the Owl Crate edition where they have like the cover on the inside of the picture.
Cool.
So yeah, I gotta show you that. But I actually am reading Wolf Gone Wild by Elliot Cross. So this is my first one. It has been on my TBR, no joke, I think over a year now. And I'm like, it is time. She's getting interviewed by Jen on, I think it's on Valentine's Day. So I'm like, that is the first one. And then I'll go ahead and read the second one to that. If you guys need something to read tonight, in the comments below, along with all these lovely ladies, which you guys all need to follow. Also in the comments below is the H.R. Moore free book. So if you guys need something to read, you could pick up Queen of Empire, which is in the comments. And then
which I'm going to be reading this month. It's also, I mean, not right now, but you can read along with me.
Right. And then also, I guess these are free on Kindle Unlimited. Did you guys hear that Kindle Unlimited is doing like 3 free months right now?
They usually do that
from
around this
time.
time.
Yeah.
Right. So I just picked up 3 free months, and I'm so excited because I just picked up these 2 books. So I wanted to throw that out there for everybody. So
I
yeah,
love
I'm
Wolf Gone
very
Wild. That was one of my favorite books last year. So good.
I'm biased. I can't say anything. I loved it.
Mateo and Evie, one of my favorite couples ever. I love that book so much.
So yeah, no, so as we go, I'm just so excited to dive into this. But okay, so how are your TBRs looking right now? Is it like really overwhelming right now? Has it been pretty tame for you guys?
Yes, overwhelming. Completely overwhelming. Poor life choices. Like, I feel like February is the month of poor life choices at this point. Like, of just overextending on so many levels.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's the month with the shortest amount of days in it. I lost my mind temporarily. I'm like, oh, sure, you can read 30 books this month.
I know.
And you have a job, you can work. I mean, yeah, I don't know how that's going to go.
I know.
Yeah, my TBR is a little out of control, but it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
I have like
flames in the background. I'm that dog with the flames all around.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, no, mine's super out of control. I have like books for review. I'm in multiple book clubs. I'm doing 3 readathons. I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do all of it. Why not?
I'm just trying to be really calm about it and be like, look, if you want to be a mood reader, be a mood reader, and you don't have to stick to the TBR, but it's there if I want it. And I also made a lot of spinner wheels just in case I get stuck because I don't want to get in the book slump this month. So that's the way I'm planning February. That's how it's going to go for me.
That's such a good idea. I need to do that too, because today I was like having a crisis about what am I going to read tonight? I just don't know.
When I have too many choices, it gets like that. I'll open like 5 books and I'll like read a page and I'll be like, no. And I just need some direction. So I need somebody to like pick it for me. So
I think I'm going to go like in a pattern and do like fantasy romance, Black author, historical romance, and just kind of like continue that throughout the month. And I think that might hopefully get it all done.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have any say-so in the direction. I feel like the readathons are dictating what I'm going to read this week. So I'm like, okay, what book are we on? Okay, great. Just read that. Just tell me what to read.
I'm trying to combine some of my people or readathons and stuff. So I'm doing fantasy and like Black history with Legendborn. So I'm like trying to combine some of them. So I'm like, okay, so I'm hitting like 2 at the same time. So like the bingo board, how you can hit like 4 spots at the same time. I'm trying to do that with readathons too. So
100%.
Like I'm waiting for that book where you could read it and it wipes out the bingo board. Like it hits like everything on the bingo board.
All of them. You don't have to worry about it after.
Good luck.
So, okay. So do you guys want to kick into reading right now? And then we could talk a little more after, because I just want to chat with you guys. That's all I want to do. Like, I know you guys signed up for reading, but I just want to hang out.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to put 20 or 25 minutes? You guys choose. I'll throw it out to you guys.
It's your channel, you pick.
And ask
Okay.
comments.
People in the comments tell us.
Right.
Don't
You guys
make me
put
make
20
another decision.
Right, 20, 25, or 30 minutes. I'll even put the 30 minutes out there if you think I talk too much. I'll throw it out there. So, and then we'll go with whoever comments first. And we'll go from there. And yeah, because I've got some really fun questions after this. That would be, I think, okay. So it looks like 25 was first. So 25 it is.
Perfect.
Gosh, I'm terrible at math, guys. What is
Jen, I
that?
think we're only doing one.
Right. So that'd be 6. What is that? 6:36. Did I get that right? Awesome. Cool.
think so.
Okay. 6:36. All right.
All right.
I'll see you guys then.
All right.
Oh, well. right. What do you guys think? 6:36?
Mhm.
Okay. Literally counting down the minutes to hang out with you guys. Like, okay, 5:36. So how was your reading? Let's start with that.
Good.
It's gone good.
Yeah.
I'm about halfway through Radiance, and I'm like ready for some steam to pick up for now, but I'm very intrigued by the world. So, but yeah.
It's super slow burn, so the steam is like late in the book, but it's really good.
Okay. As long as it's
So,
there, I'm good.
Right. Crystal, you just read Radiance, right? Or is that on your TBR for this month?
No, I read that a few years ago. I loved it.
Yeah. So anybody else? How's their reading going?
I read a couple of chapters. The plot is thickening. I don't know. It's good.
Awesome.
Mine is good. I'm only in chapter 2, and I struggle with fantasy with the some of the names because they're just like really, really out there. But I've come across the plot, and I'm intrigued. So we'll see. It's a quick read, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like with fantasy, like it's the world building and the names. If you're new to fantasy, those are the two main like barriers to get over. But one of the things I did ask Jessen before we started this was I feel like some people, which I'm going to include this myself in this, is I get really confused with like what to classify as paranormal and what to classify as fantasy. And I don't know if you guys could like answer that. Jackson had a really good answer for that, but if you guys wanted to elaborate on that, but yeah, I'll let you guys answer that for some people like myself who get kind of confused with that.
I mean, I would say
that fantasy. Sorry, go ahead, Bethany.
I was just going to say, I think fantasy is more of an umbrella term. And so there's a lot of different subgenres that fall underneath it. And paranormal is one example of a kind of fantasy. And I think what's tricky is it's like a Venn diagram because there's like romance and like fantasy romance so that you can get genres that tend to overlap. And so like paranormal romance is kind of a bit of both, but yeah.
And I think I would probably say that fantasy would be anything that we would consider like having its own world, like its own world within it, or something kind of more like typically old school, like high fantasy. We think of that. And I think this is for me personally, anything that has like vampires or werewolves automatically goes into paranormal romance. But that's just
like
so
basically what I said.
I don't love seeing that. So I don't love seeing that like underneath a fantasy romance because to me that's different. It's its own subgenre, but
that's interesting.
I don't know. But obviously it's still fantastical too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what I said. Like fantasy has, you make up your own world. You do the world building. You have to like, it has its own like rules, magic system, different classes of races, and that's fantasy. But then you have urban fantasy, which is set in the real world. But again, there's still some magical elements that are not just like vampires, werewolves, witches, your typical kind of like things that go bump in the night, and a lot of like mythology, things that incorporate mythology with urban fantasy. I find, that to be very interesting.
That's interesting.
So what got you guys into fantasy? I know we touched a little bit on it, but is there any one particular thing that like had you going straight into fantasy?
Well, for me, Juliet Cross is my aunt. And so she was reading way before me. And she was the one that got me into reading. And she would just like, I think I was like 14 or 15 whenever she gave me Juliette Maurier. and she writes historical fantasy, and I absolutely loved it. It's a lot of like Celtic mythology, very like medieval and like the 500 with like druids and stuff. And I was like, ooh, this is so cool. They have fae. And that was pretty much my first introduction to fantasy. And I just started like browsing. I read like a lot of Tad Williams, which was like high fantasy. That was like a lot. And then Sarah Douglas, and I just like kind of branched off from there into romance because I really liked Juliette Maurier because she had romantic elements in there, and I felt like they were a lot more prominent in Juliette Maurier's series. And I was like, I want more of this. And so I started going into romance. And so like I left fantasy exclusively kind of like pretty quickly because I love like high fantasy, but I just need that romance in there. Like once you discover it, it's hard to go back.
Right.
Yeah, totally. I think I remember the first book that I read, and this was when I was little, was Matilda by Roald Dahl, which when I read it, I didn't know that it had a fantasy element in there. I just thought this was about this girl, she's at school. And then when her powers start showing up, I'm like, what in the world? And like, I didn't know that was anything. So I remember like being middle grade age and just always wanting that magical element. So like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and all of anything that was fantasy I was trying to find. But I think that the thing that really got me interested in a blend of fantasy romance was Robin McKinley. And her romance is like so subtle. But that was the first time where I was like, I really like this blend, and I wish that there was a little more in this.
Right. For me, I remember like, cause I was older when I started reading a lot of the stuff, is I got that Divergent series and I literally chucked that book across the room. I was like, I'm taking a break from dystopian because that just ended so poorly for me anyway. So then I ended up stumbling across Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. And that is like, I think that that's a true, like a good blend of like fantasy romance. And I just like fell in love with that. I was just like, oh my gosh, where are more books like this? And it was like, I don't know, was it hard for you guys to find fantasy romance? Like, or was that something that was easier to stumble across? Because for me, I was like always looking at fantasy reviews, and my first question always was like, how's the romance? And I would have to watch the booktuber really closely to see if they'd even mention the romance. So I don't know. What do you guys, were you guys ever like that?
I mean, I love romance, and I like romance with fantasy, but I also love epic fantasy and so I mean, I like all forms of fantasy. So I don't like necessarily have to have romance all the time, but I do like having it at least some of the time. I don't know. I mean, I think it exists in a lot of places though. Like even growing up, I read a lot of Tamora Pierce, who I love. And she has romance integrated into her books for like a YA audience. And Sarah J. Maas was probably one early on that I did a lot. And like Cassandra Clare does like urban fantasy, and all of that has romance and fantasy merged together. So I think in like YA, there's a lot of it. In adult fantasy, it's a little bit different. I mean, I like both, but yeah. Although one book that's an adult fantasy romance that's being marketed as a fantasy, but it's really like a romance, is Empire of Sands by Tasha Suri.
Oh, interesting.
It's so good. It's like a really beautiful, slow burn marriage of convenience romance with this like epic fantasy world. And it's sold as a fantasy, but it really is a fantasy romance. And so I don't know, you can find it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I bought that because I heard it had a great romance in it, but I have always been under the impression that it was more of a fantasy and the romance was just like a little tiny bit of it.
No,
No?
like the romance,
That makes me more excited.
Like if you took the relationship out of it, you would have very little plot left. Like everything hinges on like, it's a slow burn, like it takes a long time, but like, yeah, it's beautiful. It's really good.
I think someone also asked what the difference is between low fantasy and high fantasy is. So would you guys know that?
I don't know if my answer is correct, but I kind of group in low fantasy with like urban fantasy kind of. I don't know. It's like in your current world, but there's like a magic system in your current world. Like something has happened, and it's like basically an alternate dimension with like magic.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, like just there's like
I would
less,
agree with that.
yeah, and like less intricate world building or less intricate magic system. So like high fantasy, you're usually getting something that's in a completely different world from our world, and it has rules to the beings that inhabit the world, to the magic system.
Right. So I guess I know we talked about a little bit of this, but what is on your TBR for this month? Do you guys have stuff that you're just really pumped about that you're going to be reading? Like, what are things that you're just like, are there any things like surprises going to happen, or what do you guys have?
I have a secret TBR that I'm not telling anybody about. Well, some people know, but anyway.
I don't know.
I'm reading a lot of books that other people are reading. Like I'm planning on reading A Touch of Darkness, and Crystal's reading the second book in the series. So I'm like really excited about that because I love Hades and Persephone. But I wanted to discover some new authors. Oh, I also added a historical fantasy, The Sorcerer's Lady by Deborah Deere, because I didn't have any like historical romances with fantasy. And I loved Cara Marie Moning's Highlanders with like the fantasy with like the druids and the fae. And I'm like, I want more of that. So I picked up that one and I put that one on there. So yeah, I'm just going to mood read my way through all of my TBR.
That's a good way to do it. I feel like, because I feel like I am a very much a mood reader. So like to have it planned out for me, it's a little bit of a struggle. Like I've failed almost every single TBR I've ever put up for BookTube. So
yeah, it's like
I was reading this in January. That didn't happen. I am reading this month though. Like mark my words. I don't care if it's February 28th. I'll be reading this. What else are you guys reading?
I think that's the great thing about a lot of these readathons too, is that because I don't normally make a TBR because I just can't stick with it. But joining these different book groups that are out there and reading along with them, it's kind of forcing me to stop putting that book on the back of the shelf that, hey, I want to get to that someday. And it's like, okay, well, these people are reading it. I really want to talk about it with them. So I'll go ahead and, and jump in. And my TBR just has a very few, maybe 3 or 4 that I hope that I can get to. But most of them are just like read alongs. I mean, I started off my first book today's February 2nd, right? Yeah. So yesterday,
I'm like, it's January still.
Right. I just changed my calendar, by the way. I just ripped that January off today. I'm like, oh, it's February. Like,
but I started and finished Destiny's Embrace yesterday by Beverly Jenkins. Freaking fantastic, 5 stars. I think if I start off with a really good read, that's going to compel me to keep going forward. And I loved everything about that book. So
she's great.
Yeah.
Which series is that a part of, Natasha? Because I have like a couple of her books, but I think I have like a book from like every single series. I want like the complete set. Which one's Destiny's Embrace?
Yeah, that's I think it's just referred to as the Destiny series. Destiny's Embrace, Destiny's Surrender,
Destiny's Captive. Yeah.
I'm trying to collect all of her beautiful covers. So
yes.
Just got some gorgeous ones too. Okay, so I guess my next question for you guys, because I know we're going to wrap up here, is my next question is who's going to stop everything to read the new Sarah J. Maas book? Like, who's just going to like stop that day to just be like, I'm going to just drop what I'm doing to be like, audio in.
Oh, I definitely am. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've had that pre-ordered for months.
Right.
Yeah, I have the audio pre-ordered too.
There's a bunch of people like I know I've gotten a couple DMs, Christy and Jen, who are like literally we're doing a buddy read for SJM and we're so friggin' excited. Like it's just gonna be I feel like it makes me worried because I'm gonna read this next book that comes out for her. And it's gonna be like 2 years till we get the next one. Because I feel like Crescent City is gonna have 2 right after. Do you feel like that might be the case? I don't know.
Yeah, but Crescent City is great.
Well, yeah.
It is. It's so
It is
good.
really good too. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So, but did you guys hear about what she's kind of doing for like the special editions? I just wanted to throw it out there was that she has one with Books a Million that has Ezreal. I'm sorry, I'm so bad with names. His like secret scene, and then Barnes and Nobles has a secret scene for Feyre and Rosalind. Yeah, sorry, Riesland. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Names are terrible with me.
No,
So-
yeah, I pre-ordered the Barnes and Noble one and the Audible audio.
Right. So do you go and just order both knowing that you're going to like read
Oh,
them
yeah.
and then you like give them away? Like, cause how can I keep 3 copies of this book? Or what do you do? What are you guys going to do?
I don't know if you want my answer because it's always you buy multiple ones, right? Like when Sarah McLean released the date and the pre-order link, so I'm like, yep, buy that. I'm gonna buy it when it comes out with the swag. So I'm like, if it's a favorite author, a favorite book, I buy multiple editions. I do. I don't mind doing that.
I'm less invested in this series than in Crescent City. Like if she did this with Crescent City, I would 100% just buy multiple editions. This one, like I'm excited to read it, but I'm like it's not as much a favorite. So I'm fine with like my Barnes and Noble edition.
And do you guys know, like, has she said that? Because I'm going to do her virtual event on the 20th. And I'm just wondering, does anybody know who the next books are going to be about? Or we don't know that information yet?
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping
honestly,
she has said that this is her dirtiest book ever.
Alicia, are you listening? Alicia, did you hear that?
I know, I'm listening. I did hear like Sarah didn't ask, and I'm like, out a little bit. I'm here. I heard the dirty. But I feel like there's a lot of backstory I would have to read to get to that dirty, and I am not that. Like when Carrie says, like, you need to read like 800 pages to then get to like 100 pages.
Okay.
It goes by shockingly quickly. It's very like bingeable.
Right.
It is, yeah.
In all fairness, like I told Bethany the other day that I haven't read Cassandra Clare yet because I don't want to start at the very beginning of her series. Like, because I feel like you have to read like the whole thing through, but then they let me know, like, if you read the Immortal Instrument series, you can kind of get away with going through the other series. But for me, I was like, I don't know if I want to invest in like 30 books before I get to the series I want to get to, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I had my husband actually. I had my husband start her Infernal Devices series because he likes to read sometimes too, which is sort of like a throwback. And he
that was the prequel,
didn't feel like he needed.
Yeah,
it's the prequel one, but it wasn't published first. And he was like,
it was
he
published
didn't feel.
after.
Yeah, so he didn't feel lost or anything, and he loved it.
With
so
that. Yeah, I think you could totally start with that one. Yeah, and it's
so, anybody want to read the Infernal Devices series with me? That's where I need to start.
I haven't read those in years. I'm gonna.
I haven't either, and I've been wanting to. Actually.
I know. I want to do a reread of like the whole early series. I started reading so long ago. Like, neither series was finished when I started reading them. So
I started reading. There was only the first 2 books. I started reading. There was only City of Embers. The second one was out, and that was. And I was like, "What? Who is this hot guy on the cover?" I'm like, "Yes."
Well, I got to
we can all read them together. I'm okay with that. Like, we can all do like a buddy read, and we could be like, "Oh my gosh!" Like
that's when I started reading them too.
I love them.
I remember it was 2008.
I still need to read City of Heavenly Fire. Is that what it is? I stopped there. I never finished that series.
I got to meet her for the first time when Clockwork Princess came out, which was fun. So like I was reading before then, and
that's so fun.
It was cool. And then I saw her for Chain of Gold right before they canceled the rest of her tour. It was like the last stop they did before COVID, and Like I told her and she was like, oh my gosh, you've been reading for that long. That's amazing. So like that was
You also met some other authors, Bethany. You've met SJM.
I've met a lot of I've met a lot of authors.
But here's the thing. This is how cool SJM is. And I feel like I could say that about her because I met her too.
So nice.
And
She's
this
so
is
nice.
what happened was in LA. What happened is her tickets accidentally went on sale. So you could buy the pre-ticket to like meet her. So I went in thinking like, oh, nobody got it because there was a glitch in the system. She ended up, these are all going to fall over, which is fine. She ended up doing a golden ticket in her books. So if you got this golden ticket in her books, you got to meet her. And we know how lucky I am. I ended up getting a golden ticket. She only gave out like 20 of these out of like 800 people. So I ended up getting to meet her and everything. And it was just bomb. It was like the best day ever. I just had to throw that in there. And why she's my favorite author, just for the fact when I got to meet her, she just is so freaking cool. Like you think she's cool at like the Instagram post. She actually is that cool in real life.
She's really nice.
Like goal standards, cool as Sarah J. Maas. Like that's the goal. So, I mean, sweetest, and it helps like me really enjoy the books that much more, knowing the author's so cool. So, okay, so we're getting to our 3 minutes. I'm keeping you guys in the hour, I promise. We're gonna go around and we're gonna talk about what we're doing for the month because I know you guys have other reading plans. No, Crystal, I'm joining yours because I'm going to be there for that. But Justin, you go first. What else are you doing for the month, girl?
Well, I have all the podcast books that we're rereading. So this week we're recording Love is a Rogue, and I really love that one. That was my first Lenora Bell. And also rereading The Innkeeper Chronicles by Alona Andrews, which is amazing. I recommend to everybody. Please read that book. So lots of podcast reading and just trying to stick to the fantasy romance February TBR. But also another book recommendation that is a crossover between the Black Readathon and the fantasy is Jasmine Silvera. I think it's called Tooth and Spell. And the first book is like Binding Shadows. It has a really pretty purple cover. I guess I could pull it up. But that one's really cool. It's kind of like urban fantasy, I think I would consider it. It has like some werewolves and stuff, but it has like necromancers and witches and very cool. So that could be a crossover book if anybody's looking for one.
Awesome. So I'm obviously reading what I'm reading for the FaRoFeb, and then I am doing the Victorian Rebels series with my awesome romance book squad with the adorable Kerrigan Byrne, who I just want to like be besties with, and I like to think that we are actually really besties in real life. And then so I'm doing a bunch of those. So we have what do we have? We have the Duke coming up next, or the Highlander, the Duke with the dragon tattoo, and the Scot who beds his wife. And then I'm also doing Crystals because, you know, that is the Sarah McLean series I have not read yet that I happen to own all 3 books of. And I am determined this year to read the books that I own to the point that, you know, I'm like basically not buying. I am just going to read what I have. And since I have them, I'm so excited. And then the other one I have is I have to read Hearts of Flame with a friend of mine, the Johanna Lindsay, if anyone is interested in reading Hearts of Flame, which might have some dubious consent issues because it's old school Johanna Lindsay. And then I have the Black Author Readathon, which I'm reading 2 Stacey Reads because I have them as well, and I need to read what I have, and a Beverly Jenkins, and something else that I can't remember. So, Natasha, what are you going to read?
Of course, the Victorian Rebel series. I'm reading Love Only Once with the Historical Hellions. Seasonally Booked Up Girls. His Mistress by Morning. I've got that on audio. The Ruin of a Rake, I am really, really looking forward to. Of course, Fantasy February. And then I've got a lot on my Black author list. Readathon, Concrete Rose comes out in February. It's either out now or it comes out really, really soon. And I've been dying to read that. I just love Angie Thomas. She just makes me feel all the feels. And then I've got a Prince on Paper from Melissa Cole that I'm really looking forward to reading because I've heard good things. And I'm also reading For Richer or Poorer, because that is, we fell in love with that author, Charlene. Now I'm gonna say it wrong.
Namdahari. Namdari. Oh, damn it. I'm never gonna say it. Namdari.
Read her intoxication book, and I'm hooked. I love her writing. So yeah, so it's on my list. Crystal?
So I'm reading, I have books I'm reading for the Black Author Readathon for Fantasy Romance February. And then my own book club that I do with Jen from the Book Refuge. We have a historical romance book club. And this month we are reading the Scandal and Scoundrel series by Sarah MacLean. And she will be on our live show to talk with us about that. So we're super excited about that. She is my favorite. So that's at the end of the month. Very excited.
Yay.
I'm doing a lot of things. So
Where do I begin?
So I'm reading some things for the Black Author Readathon, Blackathon, and the Blacklit Challenge, which I have like a combined TBR video for all three of those readathons, which are hosted by great booktubers. I also, starting this month and going forward one a month, I'm co-hosting a read-along of the Song of the Lioness Quartet by Tamora Pierce, starting with Alana. Me and Ashley from Bookish Realm are reading these. We're doing this. And there's like a Discord. We're doing a live show, and that'll be fun. And then I'm also joining some friends who started a book club, and now a couple of us other friends in the group are joining in to the Blades and Bodice Strippers book club, where they alternate between romance and fantasy. And this month we're reading From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is a fantasy romance. So there will be a live show for this on Amanda at the Naughty Librarians channel that I will be on. So those are like, plus like things for review and whatever else. But yeah, those are like the big, the big thing.
Okay, so I will keep mine short and sweet. I'm joining all these ladies and probably doing 90% of what they said, but then I'm also adding in the Ravished by Romance. They are finally doing fantasy romance.
Oh, yes.
What is it called again, Crystal? Because you just read it.
A Touch of Darkness.
There we go. A Touch of Darkness. I will be adding that to my TBR along with the Kerrigan Byrne, which I just want to stick her in my pocket because I love her. The Sarah MacLean with Crystal's group. I'm going to be doing. I'm going to try to include everybody as I watch Jessen, as I hang out with Bethany, as I hang out with my girl squad. Like, I'm literally trying to put it all together. So we'll see how this goes. And I'm trying to move as well. So we're going to see if I can survive the month. It's survival time. Survival this month. But I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and letting me chat your ear off. And oh my gosh, please come back anytime if you just want to hang out, like ever. But if you want to follow all these ladies,
fun.
If you guys want to follow all the ladies, they're in the Discord. Please follow them all because Bethany is almost to 10K. So we need to get her there. So please just click, like, subscribe, whatever you need to do, get her to that 10K. And as always, thanks guys for coming on, and we'll talk soon. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Soon. Bye guys.
Bye.
Bye.